Today's guest is Dewayne Hankins, president of the Portland Trail Blazers and the Rose Quarter. We start super tactical, from his 5:30 a.m. workouts to the 90-minute head start he gives himself before the office fills up. He shares how discipline and intentionality shape his daily rhythm. Then this episode takes us deep into the art of modern leadership, hiring with trust, managing with humility, and learning from failure. We talk about everything from punk rock bands and VO2 max scores to revenue pressures, arena renovations, and how to rally a city around its team even during rebuilding years. Dewayne also opens up about the importance of curiosity, debate, and staying competitive in every facet of life. Let's get into it with Dewayne Hankins on the Excellent Leadership Podcast. Do us a favor. We're going to start super tactical. You are president of the Portland Trail Blazers. You've got this incredible Rose Quarter, but you have to start every day preparing for a day where you're running a team. How do you start your days?
It's always a morning workout.
Always morning workout.
Always a morning workout. I got to get the stress out. Like, to me, if I don't work out, I tend to build up that stress. So get up early, get a workout in.
What time?
5:30 and work out at 6.
I love that.
Yeah. And then from there, get done, go to the office and get about a good 90 minutes in before anyone even shows up, and just get sorted, get my to-do list for the day, get everything organized that I want to get done, and try to have a productive day.
So you're mapping out the start of your day before there's any. Are you checking your emails, or are you saying, no, I need to know what I'm planning for before I start getting distracted?
I mean, I'll check to see if there's any burning fires, but mostly I try not to get distracted by the squirrels in the inbox.
And you're wearing a smartwatch over here, so you're tracking these workouts. You're taking them seriously.
Every single one.
Do you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I run most of the 4 days a week. I run 3 days, lifting or something like that. But it's that, and then it's the Strava mentality. I have the app there, so then it keeps track of your effort and your load and all that stuff. And I just get frustrated at watching my fitness score go down. Yeah. So it's like an internal competition with myself.
I'm similar with my watch. My watch will guide my life, and when it says your training is unproductive,
yes,
all of a sudden there's a 9-mile jog where my wife has to pick me up on the side of the road because I'm falling apart. I'm like, I just wanted to prove my app wrong. I can handle this.
I got hit with COVID and then the flu in a month, and then how your watch, I couldn't work out, and it starts telling me I'm detraining, and I'm like, if you only knew.
I'm sick, thank you.
I hate it. Mine got stuck on detraining for a long time. It's like, what is going on? I'm working hard.
Right.
I think I was just pairing the app or something. But
what I did learn, if you're not jogging outside and you had a couple of weeks where your VO2 max went down, it's presuming your VO2 max is staying down. This is what I think, because I was stuck in detraining for 6 weeks until I did another jog outside. It's like, oh no, he's fine. He's handling it. So yeah. Sometimes it's just tricking the app.
Got it.
Yeah.
It might not actually change my life, but it's tricking the app is what it is.
Yeah, the VO2 max is the other one that I'm super competitive.
Are you? What's your VO2 max right now?
50. Well, so on my watch or my real VO2 max? Because I went and got that.
What's
really
the better
checked.
one? Whatever the better one is.
The better one was the real VO2 max.
Was
it
it?
was 55.
And what's the watch telling you?
52.
You're killing
so it's not that far off.
Yeah, but that's fantastic though.
Yeah, I went in and got wore the little mask and went on a bike, and you just go until you fail, and then it tells you what your VO2 max is. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like you would love
the
that.
That's next level.
Yeah, you would love. You
good.
guys would both love doing.
We're very competitive with our fitness for sure. But so does that similar with how you eat and how you keep your mind sharp by reading? How disciplined do you get in the habits of your life outside of the four walls of the office?
I think I've always worked out so that I could eat whatever I want, but I feel like my age is going to prevent that from happening soon.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to watch that a little bit more. And then reading is a huge one for me. Whether it's audiobooks or books, a big part of it for me is continual learning. And so certainly when I first got this job 3 years ago, every day was continual learning. And then as you get the rhythm, you start to get that appetite and crave the learning from other things. And I've found myself, especially in the last 3 months, really going back to books and learn, and just what can I get out of this? What can I learn? And
are you listening to books when you're exercising, or do you put on music?
It depends, right? So I think I go, if it's a long run, I'll listen to a book. But if I go 2 minutes and am thinking too much and not listening to the book, it means it's time to either put music on or just take the AirPods off.
I can get that way. I will listen to podcasts or books exercising. At some point I'll be 15 minutes into a workout. I have no idea what I listened to. I'm like, it still counts as a book that I read for the year, though. I'm going to still put it in my tally to make myself feel good.
I'll rewind it. I'll be the guy on the trail like, hey, Siri, can you back up 2 minutes? I wasn't listening.
Does Siri do that?
Oh, yeah.
See, I didn't realize this.
That's great. So
It's been productive already.
yeah.
Let's just talk fitness for the next hour.
Well, fitness matters.
No, it's true. And the fact that you make intentional time to be physically fit, but then mentally sharp. You just mentioned you got into your seat 3 years ago. I'd love to back up a little bit. Tell us a minute story of how you eventually got into your seat today.
Minute story. So I love sports from a young
Is
age.
this part of the timer? Should I start it?
Yeah, start it. Love sports from a young age. My dad took me to my first sporting event. I got to go to opening day at Comiskey Park for the White Sox. It was old Comiskey, and I got pulled out of school, and it was just the coolest thing I'd ever done. And I fell in love with sports, and then of course I grew up in the 90s in Chicago with Michael Jordan, and it was such a big part of my life. And my dad always said, like, go do something you love. He had his own business and he did an awesome job raising us, but he didn't seem like he loved what he did. He seemed like he really wanted us to pick something that we loved. And I just always loved sports. And so I didn't know you could work in sports until I started getting close to graduating college and internships with a couple baseball teams and moved around the country a little bit, and then got lucky enough to meet a mentor, Chris McGowan, who was head at AEG when I was there. He and I won a championship with the LA Kings and the LA Galaxy, and then he went up to Portland and to run the Blazers, and then he asked if I wanted to join him. And I think for 8 years he was, helping me prepare for the job. And when he left, took the reins over from him and have been there since. So
most of your early career was, I was looking at marketing, sales, media. Why that particular, those disciplines versus finance, accounting, human resources?
Yeah, I was always really fascinated with technology at a young age too. Like I went to school initially for at Iowa State, by the way, and I went for computer engineering, and I thought that's what I was going to do, and I don't think I was smart enough, so I changed majors to journalism, communications. But I love technology, and at the time I was coming up in marketing, we were really starting to thrust technology into marketing. It was a lot of digital advertising. Social media had started to be building and buzzing when I was in Minnesota, and then really took off when I was in Los Angeles. And I was just always fascinated with ways to use technology to talk to our fans. And so that was something that I just enthralled myself in. Like anytime a new social media platform would come out, it was how can we use this to have a better relationship or a closer relationship with our fans. Oh, that's
really cool.
Yeah. So I think that's really what got me excited about marketing. I really thought I was going to do public relations, and that's what I started in, but marketing technology, and then later on commercial partnerships, because I love the idea of sitting down with a company, figuring out how you can tell their brand story through your team or your platform.
Was there a particular moment early on in your career where you would say that was a pivotal moment in my career? Either someone invested in you, or you closed a huge deal, or something transpired where you look back, you're like, man, that's when the trajectory of my life changed.
There was so many reasons that this happened, but during the 2012 playoffs, I was with the LA Kings and heading up their digital team, and it was lightning in a bottle. The Kings were the 8th seed and barely made the playoffs, and we ended up winning the Stanley Cup and being up 3-0 in every series because Jonathan Quick was an insane goaltender in that whole playoffs. But what built up to that was, we were using the social media platform. We kept hearing from our corporate partners, well, you guys don't have the same following that the Lakers or the Dodgers or these other teams have. And we didn't. I mean, the LA Kings were much smaller team in LA back then. But what I wanted to prove is we had better engagement than those teams. And we had better engagement at that time because we were using it as a conversational platform with our fans. And we were probably a little more informal than most teams were. So at the time, I remember following all these social media accounts for teams, and they were just using them as links to their press releases or getting media and news out. And we wanted to inject personality into the platform almost like if your game entertainment could talk, that's kind of how we thought about it. So when you're in the arena, you're very much pushing for the home team to win, and we wanted to push that on social. And we were doing that for some time, but in the playoffs, for some reason, everyone started to notice it, and it came in the first game, and it was a coworker of mine, Pat Donahue, who posted, after we beat the Canucks in game 1, we had all these fans during the game that were telling us that were from Canada, telling us to beat the Canucks. For some reason, no one else in Canada likes the Canucks, and so like Canadians fans and Maple Leafs fans and all these fans were tweeting at us to beat them. So after
the West Coast rivalry, I think we have that in the U.S. too.
Yeah, there's something there. So after the first game, he tweets to everyone outside of British Columbia, "You're welcome." Now that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but back then it was a huge deal, and it was on TSN, and it was top of the like page news on their website, and we're watching this thing go viral, and we're like, oh man, we're gonna get fired. Like you hear about this all the time, like social media. Guy gets fired for saying dumb thing, and our team loved it. Like Chris McGowan, who I spoke of earlier, called me the day after, and I thought maybe he was calling to let me go, but he was calling.
Did you really?
On the way to work, I kind of wondered, and he's like, "No, this is great. Like we'll cover this." And Tim Lewicki, who was the CEO of AG at the time, he appreciated it, and it really launched a lot of different things that we did, and we kept that playoff run going. So for instance, it's no surprise to have celebrities in LA come to games. So Rainn Wilson of The Office fame wanted to come to a game, and we're like, you can come, but we're going to give you the tickets and a bowl of Jell-O, which we did.
Did you really? How fun is that?
So we just had like so much.
He was a good sport about it?
Yeah, he was a good sport about it. We just had so much fun, and I think that really put like a different way of doing social media on the map, and a lot of other teams have done it since and have done a great job. So,
which major athletes did you have at the Galaxy during that time too?
David Beckham and Robbie Keane. So,
yeah. So what was it like getting to do social media and lead marketing with two iconic athletes like that?
Yeah. I mean, we had Lisa Bregman, who was running digital at the time for the Galaxy, was the real hands-on person, and she did a phenomenal job. But I mean, I think the team did such a great job taking advantage of, when you have those players on your team, to have the opportunity that you have to cover them the way that you want to cover them, you just gotta do it. It's almost like I was saying with the Kings, when you're on that sort of stage, you really have to get everything out of it that you can, and I think that team did a great job.
Yeah.
How did you mentioned a person that ran social media. How did you find that person? Because in a world of creatives in LA, the world's your oyster essentially on who you can select to be that person. How did you find someone that fit what you were trying to build so well?
I mean, a lot of it was luck, to be honest. Yeah. Like Pat, who had worked at the Kings for a while, and I think is now at Square Enix. When we interviewed him, I just knew he was going to be a great fit. And we were just like a small and mighty team back then. It was just two of us covering all of the games, and we had similar humor and similar personality. And so we just were in sync with each other. We also knew what the line was because we had very clear guidelines around that from our our executive management, which I think was really key back then to understand like how far can we take this.
Yeah,
which is great.
Because you grew up on the social media technology side of the equation, you then moved into sponsorship sales. Still to this day, we hear people all the time trying to figure out digital sponsorship sales. Were you guys an innovator in that space too back then?
We definitely did a lot of that in LA, but AEG was just such an innovative company. My role overseeing partnership happened during, the pandemic actually. So a lot of it was you're just trying to keep the partners that you have. And what I feel really lucky about was all of our interactions were digital at that point. So season pauses, we go into the bubble, and we know exactly how we're going to help monetize our partners or make them feel good about their partnership while we're in the bubble. So it was nice to be able to take, some of the learnings from my career and be able to apply them to a game that we weren't allowed to have fans for too long of a time.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah.
You've been promoted up from essentially a chief marketing officer job. There's a lot of temptation in executives when they're promoted from CMO into president or CEO to really be CMO plus or CFOs who get promoted up and they're CFO plus, and they neglect the fact that they now manage the whole business. How do you avoid that temptation? How do you restructure your work behaviors and habits to make sure that you sit in that complete role? And that'll be advice for others who are going through the same journey.
It's such a good question because it was one of the things I remember. Again, I was on a run in Forest Park in Portland, knew I was going to get the job, and I was like, oh no, who's going to do my job? Because I'm going to get this job. And I was thinking, and there was someone had admired for years at the Canucks who'd been there 17 years, and his name's Kevin Kinghorn. And I was like, the only person I trust to do this job is this person, because if they do this job, I won't be involved at all. I can totally go learn the rest of this job, which is all these areas I've never overseen before, but I can only do that if I have, this person that I trust in the role. I was lucky to convince Kevin to take the opportunity with us. And I think you're absolutely right. You can fall in this trap of when you have bad days at work and you feel like you can't make any decisions, you can easily lean into the marketing job, for me, my old job, and start making decisions and feel like you're doing something, but you really need to lean into the uncomfortable parts of the job and really learn, and leave the part that you know really well to somebody else that you trust.
So how do you do that? How do you go make sure that the other functions are operating the way that they need to operate?
Yeah, I mean, again, once you have that person in place to do your job, you just go in and ask questions. I mean, and I never came into the role thinking that I had all the answers. And in fact, I remember having this conversation when I was still a CMO, but I was going to oversee our broadcast team. And I didn't know the first thing about how to do a broadcast. And the Blazers have always done their broadcast internally. And I went to that leader and I said, I'm going to be overseeing this department, but I don't know a ton about it. I'm going to have a lot of questions, but I do think that this is what you guys being involved in the marketing department, here's what I think is going to help the team, but I'm going to have a lot of dumb questions. And he goes, ask as many questions as you want. Love that you're involved. Like, the fact that you're asking questions shows that you care about our department. So that lesson has stuck with me since then, because I don't think anybody, at least in our company, ever had the assumption that I knew everything about everything, and knew that as long as I was coming in, engaged and asking questions and trying to learn the business, that was the value that I would bring to those groups.
It's different when you're now the president and you do have that authority where people, they have to give you the respect of like, if you're asking a question, they'll answer it. But it's different maybe a little bit, tell us if it is, when you're in the new seat and you're reporting up to owner. And like, did you have that experience prior to that seat that you knew how to manage up, and you knew clear expectations of what the owners were looking for? Or even in that seat, you asked maybe dumb questions and felt comfortable doing so?
When I got hired into the role, Chris had left the organization. We were undergoing a basketball operations investigation at that time. We were in the middle of COVID. There was a lot of the need to be nimble. And I think when I got the role, it was great to sit down with ownership and say, and understand what their expectations were of me, which was bringing the culture together, bringing basketball and business together, helping us find our way through COVID, which happened to be all things that, were new to any leader. And so it was having those clear objectives from ownership and knowing what I knew and what I didn't know. And I think that's helped me even now. We were talking before the interview about venue renovations, and there are certainly other teams that have done this, but we have never done this. Not in our 30 years. We built the Moda Center in 95, and it's the oldest building to have not seen a renovation. So we have to go to outside help and get perspective. If we act like we know how to do this on our own, I think we fail. If we go to outside help and people that have done this, whether that's other NBA teams or some of the great folks that do this for a living, we learn so much more.
What does it mean to bring basketball and business together as one culture?
Teams have various different setups. I report up to ownership, and so does our GM. And when you have that setup, I think what happens is the two businesses can kind of be two ships sailing in different directions. And we always felt, our GM and me, that a great relationship was going to be really, really important, because on the business side, we need to know where the landmines are so we don't step in them. And then on the basketball side, I think they need to know that the business is here to support their efforts and drive revenue for them. So it's nice because Joe Cronin, who's our GM, is someone I talk to almost on a daily basis. And it's nice to have a peer at this level who you can vent to, who you can, work through business problems with. So there's huge benefits to that. And then I've always seen teams that are successful on the court, on the field, what have you, they always have a really symbiotic relationship between their sport operations side and the business operations side. And so that's always been our goal.
What's the culture, or what's the goal of culture?
The goal of culture, I think for us, is just helping people understand having that vision that you get people excited about, and then helping your staff understand exactly how they contribute to that vision.
Yeah.
I like that answer.
What is your style of leading your direct reports? How often are you meeting with them? Are those formal, informal? Are you giving feedback in a very structured way?
Typically, it's a 30 minutes. I try to do it every week. Every other week is depending on the schedule. But that's a formal sit down. And usually just going through, we are a business we manage through a business plan and have OKRs, and we do all that. And we'll sometimes talk about that. But usually I like to use that time to help them move any rocks that might be on their plate. It's definitely a great opportunity for feedback and development. I often have our chief of staff in those meetings, so I might have her not in the meeting if I'm going to be giving some direct feedback to a team member, or I'll pull that team member aside at a separate time. The other good time to catch up with folks is during games. So we get to sit courtside sometimes when ownership doesn't show up. I'll use those seats to have a leader that I haven't connected with in a while, and we'll sit and talk and watch the game together and catch up, or grab lunch or do something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Given that you grew up on the sales marketing side, now that you've had 3 years to get your feet under you on the other areas of the business, do you still tend to gravitate to working on the largest commercial deals? Do you get into the weeds and do you like getting, having meetings with chief marketing officers and CEOs and potentially doing a deal with you?
The thing that's been interesting about this role, I would say I'm starting my senior year because I'm starting my 4th year in this job. It's been a lot of really big projects. We've had to renegotiate our lease with the city. We've had a couple of broadcast deals that we've had to do. We've had all this work to do with city and state government folks. I would actually love to be involved in those types of things, but have had to kind of do all these other bigger projects in order to kind of keep the team in Portland, of course, and then all the venue reimagination work. So I've definitely been involved in, big commercial deals, or, pushing our staff forward on ticketing goals and things like that. But, again, it's the luxury of having a really great senior leadership team that I've been able to kind of get my head out of the weeds a little bit and do some of those bigger projects.
A lot of executives, as you can imagine, when we're speaking with them, they're currently chief commercial officer, or COO, or CFO, and their desire is to sit in your shoes one day. Looking back on your career, what do you think you did differently than other competitive peers of yours to stand out enough for Chris to mentor you, and for owners to notice you, to say, "Hey, Dewayne's our guy. He's the future"?
That's a great question. Two things for sure. I remember in my very first internship, I wanted to learn something every day. So I've always kept a journal to make sure that every day is not a wasted day where you don't learn something. So it could be super small stuff.
Still today you journal?
Yeah, still.
No way.
When do you find time to journal? Nighttime?
Just the end of the day. You use one of those 365 a day journals or whatever. But I use an app on my phone, and I always want to make
technology guy uses an app.
Imagine that.
Chad, give him something he needs to learn today. But you make it.
Am I in your book anywhere? Have you ever quoted me in this?
Not yet. Not yet.
I probably have.
New goal. Type A. New goal.
I have actually. You once told me we were talking. I actually remember this. We were once talking about another president role that I was potentially up for, and you had said something about making sure you take the opportunity to listen, because these things don't come around very often. And, even if it seems like it's not the right fit, go through the process. So
yeah,
awesome.
You did.
That is
you
great.
did
I love this.
So yeah, I just, it feels like a waste if you don't learn something, and not every day has been a hit, but you try to learn something. And then the second one, I love debating with people, and it's not so much that I like to argue, but it's more like I love what I learned from debating with people. Like they always have something that you can get out of them, that you can learn from them. And that's just been something that I think I love to do. But, I think what was the quote? It's like Ray Dalio said this in his book, argue like you're right, but listen like you're wrong. So just, I've stuck by that.
So if we were to call one of your direct reports, and is that how the leadership meetings look? There's constant, like, I'm challenging you because you've given me permission to.
I mean, definitely at some points. I try to reserve my opinion till the end, because you always want to kind of hear what everyone has to say and you don't want to shut down conversation in the room. But yeah, it definitely, it's not heated for sure, but it's a fun, debate.
Yeah.
That's great advice there, and advice that I should remind myself of is that it's when you're in a leadership role, it's easy to underestimate the power of your voice. And you need to allow others the opportunity to speak first, because otherwise groupthink can just agree or say it's not worth arguing or not worth giving my opinion, and just give everyone else an opportunity, ask them what they think, let the extroverts get their talk out of the way, call on the introvert.
Right.
And then maybe have an opinion and maybe you don't during that meeting.
It's hard to do, right? Because you want to look like you're the one that knows what's going on and you've got you know where it's headed and here's my opinion. But when you do that, I think it can especially the introverts I've noticed, definitely, well, they might not share that opinion, and then you've missed that whole thing. And typically it's the introverts that have put the most thought behind what they're going to say, and they can sometimes be some of the most impactful things that get said. So you don't want to shut that down.
Who are 2-3 people, you mentioned Chris McGowan, but have made a major impact in your career for you to be where you are today?
Yeah, I think Chris is definitely, think of the world of him, and he's like the one person who kind of grew me and believed in me more than anyone else. I think the other person is vice chair of the Blazers and Seahawks right now, Bert Kold. I was around when Paul Allen was alive. Of course, I was I would serve on board meetings and spend time with him. But in this role, obviously Paul passed in 18 and I got this job in 21. And Bert's experience across the Blazers, across the Seahawks, across all of Paul's assets, we've had some big things that have challenged us. And to have someone like him who's been through a ton of different stuff and be able to pick his brain and use him as an advisor and really just, hey, I'm challenged with this broadcast thing or this lease thing. What's your take on it? To have that kind of experience has been a real blessing. And he definitely challenges me in ways that, I have never been challenged before, but it's a good thing. Like, it's good to have those. He's another person that I can debate with. And I actually remember a story. This was when I was still in the CMO role, but we were sitting courtside at a game and we're talking about digital marketing. It was something about how the Blazers do it versus how the Seahawks do it. And I can't remember what the argument was, but it was something about how many tickets we have to sell versus the Seahawks and demand and all this stuff. And we're just debating very loudly. And our head creative person was texting me. He's like, "Are you going to get fired? It looks like you and Bert are really going at each other." But it's just, we both love to like have those conversations and debate. And so to have someone like that, a phone call or a text away is a good thing.
Do you often reach out to external colleagues, even in the business community? You've got some of the best companies in the world in Portland, like Audi and Nike and Columbia, etc.
As a team president, you have every other team president in the league who is happy to pick up the phone anytime. I've found they've just all been so helpful. I mean, Peter Fagan in Milwaukee has been awesome to deal with.
Guest of the pod.
Great. Perfect. Yeah. We had our city contingency of folks come out to Milwaukee, and he just showed them what the arena's done for that city, and that's been phenomenal. And there's so many people that was so willing to help on the NBA side. The other one is I'm in YPO, which for any president, I'd recommend joining. I know it seems like a big time commitment, but it's absolutely worth having a group of folks that you can go to and just talk about challenges and things with that are especially in your own community, because the things that other team presidents are dealing with, there's an NBA element to them, but the local element you really get from that YPO group, and I found that to be really helpful.
Yeah. How has your life changed externally? So not only are you the president of the team, but now you're a beacon of the community. And so community leaders business leaders, and just honestly, it's a global city too, right?
Yeah.
So world leaders maybe even come through. How has that changed your life, and how do you approach community work?
Yeah, it's funny. You say how my life's changed. At home, I'm still just dad, and the kids just
How many kids?
Two boys, 12 and 10.
Amazing. Are you the coolest dad ever? You've got a pretty cool job.
I feel like I don't feel like
they don't let
get
you
it.
in
You know,
on it,
like
that they think you're cool yet.
yeah, it's like they just know what they've grown up with. They've always been able to go to Blazers games, so
Yeah,
like, it is what
that's
it
true.
is. And they kind of walk around like they own the place sometimes. You know, on the community side, I think that especially in Portland, the Blazers are such a big thing to the community of Portland, and it's incumbent upon us as leaders, not just myself, but our leadership team, to support the community, whether that's on nonprofit boards or other things. I just think we need to lend our talent to help the local community, and Portland has also been through it the last few years. So, you know, we really have been thinking about our role as revitalizing the city of Portland, and how can the Blazers do that? And so that's been a really exciting part of the job that you know, we take as like a real opportunity.
With an aging, or you said the oldest arena in the nation,
Yeah.
or just in the
It's
NBA?
the oldest arena to have never seen a major renovation in the
Wow.
NBA. Yeah.
So how do you provide, with such limitations, one would say, how do you continue to innovate within the realm of what you have, whether game presentation, consumer experience at large? Because you don't have all the bells and whistles of the new ones.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're lucky to have such a great fan base who, even through, you know, losing times like we're dealing with now, like they continue to show up. They love this team. So we have that as a really good, solid foundation. It's almost an exciting time to be in my role and our senior leadership team to be where they are, because we have this opportunity to potentially do a lease deal that will keep the Blazers in town for the next 20, 25 years. We're working on, you know, long-term planning and venue reimagination work and feasibility studies that will hopefully set the course for what the arena looks like a few years from now. We have the women's Final Four in 2030. We want to have the arena be in really great shape by then, so that we can show that we can host big events in Portland. You know, like we'd love to have a WNBA All-Star game and an NBA All-Star game someday. So that's the part that gets me excited to come to work every day. In the meantime, yeah, there's a lot of things that we have to do to scrape and claw, but going back to, you know, Harry Glickman and his son Marshall, who helped build this team and get them to Portland, and then Paul, who, you know, was an innovator himself. Like we've always, it's obviously our name, but we try to be really innovative in the work that we do, and, you know, no different in these circumstances either.
What does that mean at a tactical level? How do you make an organization innovative? How do you create a culture and how do you measure a culture that is innovative?
I think the most important thing that we can do is be very data driven. So we're measuring the results of our work. And then the second most important thing, probably 1A and 1B, is showing our staff it's okay to screw up. I think a lot of folks feel like if they try something and it fails, then they're a failure. But I mean, it was Paul that said this years ago, like, as long as you learn from your failure and you know what you've learned from your failure, that's a success in itself. So, you know, we try to adhere to that as much as possible. So like we're going through all this generative AI work right now, and we want to be a team that's on the leading end of that. And we know that there's going to be things we hit home runs on. We know that we're going to go down paths that are going to be, you know, failures, and that's okay. We're going to learn along the way.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any big failures that you didn't think you were going to get through?
There's regrets and things I wish I would have done differently, but a lot of the time you learn from those things. Never at any point did I feel like, other than what I expressed earlier about our social media and thinking I was going to get fired, did I ever think there was anything that we couldn't get through, didn't learn from?
There's a study that was done recently about very competent candidates that interviewed for jobs. And they had half of those competent candidates do something like spill their papers as they walked in the room.
Wow.
Or spill coffee while in the interview. And the other half just conducted a perfect interview. And the data overwhelmingly favored the candidate who messed up first and then recovered during the interview, because it humanized them.
Right.
And there is an element for a team and a leader where you show like, hey, I failed too, right? I messed up too. This was not my best day.
Yeah.
And just calling it out and admitting it, but then recovering. The competence in the interview mattered considerably. And I think it's a good reminder for everyone to say,
Yeah.
we're not perfect. We're going to win almost as many as we lose, or hopefully we win a lot more, but there's seasons where you squeak by and you still make the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. And I that reminds me of a story like early on in my tenure. We were so successful not traveling our broadcast team during COVID that we were like, well, we might, our broadcasters didn't mind and they didn't think they needed to travel, so we thought we'd keep them at home. The outrage from our fans about, they thought the broadcast product would go down or they thought there would be issues. And the learning for me was like, we made this decision based on probably on budget, probably around like, we don't need to have these guys on the road because we've learned something, but we didn't have the fans' perspective in the room. And so like the learning there was, after all that media outrage, was we always need to think about what this means for the fan. And like that hasn't left me since. So like I would do that again if I knew that I was going to get that learning. And being able to tell your senior, like I remember sitting in our senior leadership staff meeting and talking about that exact mistake and what I learned from it as a means to say, it's okay, we all do this, I did this, and you can learn from it. It's important.
Like if we were to poll your leaders and say, hey, what is Dewayne like most obsessive about in the business, maybe a fan engagement KPI, maybe finance, like what do you think they would say that you really dive in on and continuously bring up as important?
Well, luckily I have an easy answer for you because I just did my 360 feedback.
Oh, good. Fresh.
It was revenue across the board. So
Nice.
That's a very boring answer probably, but I think
But you just told us you do 360s of yourself. So that's
great.
something.
There's learning in there.
There you go. But yeah, revenue. I think, as an aging arena, as a team that's, currently in a, not performing well, like we have to be in that situation where our foundation stays strong and we drive revenue as much as possible. And there's part of me that like I of course love winning and been on that side of it, but when you're building like we are, that can also be really exciting, and you really have to work harder and grind, and you learn a lot in those processes.
Quick interruption. If you are enjoying the Excellent Leadership Podcast, I have a small favor to ask you. Could you please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review? It helps us grow the Excellent Leadership Podcast community and ensures we keep bringing you top-tier guests, powerful insights, and impactful episodes. Thanks for your support. Now, back to the show.
How do you convince someone to buy a season ticket when the team's terrible?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's really about the fan experience. It's about hugging the fans, showing them the value they get from season tickets. It's about showing optimism for the future. We have a lot of really great prospects. We have great draft picks coming up. So you really want to get in now so that you can be there when the team takes off.
Yeah. How is it different with the sponsor? Because everyone wants to sign up and the team's killing it.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you convince a brand who has often publicly traded and has quarterly metrics that they're trying to meet for Wall Street? How do you convince them that, hey, in the short term, we'll be a good investment for you?
Again, we're so lucky to have engaged fans no matter how good the team is, which I don't take for granted. And then on top of that, I think what we try to do with partners is they're really wanting to tell their story using our platform. So if we're doing that the right way, it shouldn't matter necessarily if we're winning or losing basketball games. It's more, are they able to tell the story that they want to tell about their brand, using the Blazers. So we've tried to get more into that. I think a lot of teams are still, and we're one of them for sure, get caught up in performance metrics, which I think are always going to be important, but we're really trying to lean into co-branded content collaborations with these partners to help them with that story.
Yeah. Do you have an in-house creative production studio where most of your videography and storytelling is on site?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazing.
When we're lucky because we do our own broadcast production, that we have all those resources available to us. And then we have a commercial partnership strategy team that almost serves as an internal agency to work with our partners on brainstorming. Is
there a favorite, maybe you can't answer, but is there a favorite brand activation that you're super proud of that maybe that was different from what others around the league were doing?
The one that comes to mind for us was, it joins a couple of these different things, but we talked about having business and basketball working together. So one of the first things that we did was a lot of folks do this. You see this with F1 that does this really well, but we wanted to have a documentary series behind the scenes with the team, understanding what happens. Basketball was very gracious in giving us access to that. And then we were able to turn that into a show that's won a couple of Emmys called The Trail that we partner with Alaska Airlines on. And so Alaska, obviously, travel is a big part of these shows, but not only that, I mean, if you fly on an Alaska plane, our content is the Trail documentary is available for folks to watch on the plane. Really and cool. That's, millions of folks a year that have the opportunity to be able to watch that. So it's not just like when you think about these things co-branded, it's the fact that we have all these people that have potential exposure to the Blazers. And then for Alaska, it's all that potential exposure that they create through the show.
I think the branded content on airplanes is such a genius model because you've got I think was it Delta where you have to, before you can get the free Wi-Fi, you've got to watch this 1.5-minute ad. Like that's the best placement on earth because everyone wants the free Wi-Fi, and you got to sit there, but that's genius. And all of that was done in-house, like the storytelling element of it.
Yeah, completely in-house. We have such a talented video production team with whether it's our editors or shooters or our creative directors, just being able to pull those stories out. Yeah.
What do your owners, what's most important to them? Because we work with some owners and winning is absolute everything for sure. Others say, hey, we want to win, but we also, the platform we have in the community is just absolutely critical to who we are as a family. And then some owners their revenue is actually not as important as you might think it would be for a very wealthy family. So what is important to them?
For Jody Allen, who's running the estate now that Paul has passed, she's very competitive. So it's winning, but it's not just our winning percentage or wins and losses on the court. It's also, where we rank in the league in everything from ticket sales to rankings. And I love that about her because she's always asking, well, how can we go from this number to this number? And then we can have conversations about how we can move the needle up. So I love that, we talked about being competitive earlier, playing Monopoly. And I think there's a real, the competitive juices that Jody has to really understand how we can get better in sort of every area is great.
On a sports team, part of the GM's job and the coach is to say, am I best investing this budget into the right person in the right seat? How is that different on the business side? Making sure that you're optimizing having the right leader in the right seat at what your budget can versus preventing disruption and changing over of a staff. How do you think about that?
I've been in other organizations where your leadership team or the senior leadership team looks fragmented. And so I've always thought the strongest leadership teams are the ones that look like they're together. And so for me, sort of the first filter is, does the leadership team get along? Do they work together? Are they willing to, have, again, those courageous or brave debates and conversations to get to the best answer for the business? Because I think when you step out of that room and you try to put your department first over the team, you start to run into issues. So for me, it's really about, does this team feel like they're the number one team? And if people in that room are together on that, I think that builds a ton of trust. And those, we meet 90 minutes a week as a senior leadership team, and it's not updates. It's not going through and talking about things we already know. It's let's bring the hardest topics to the table and try to hash them out. And you can't have those kinds of meetings if you don't have a ton of trust in that room and feel like the conversations are going to leave that room and get down to other staff. So that to me is number one. And then the second one is just really, really high EQ. I think senior leaders, there's a lot of expectations on senior leaders, which is why especially senior leaders at companies get compensated well, is you have to be able to manage complicated conversations across other senior leaders and with your own staff. You have to be able to have an engagement level and understand and listen and do all those things and meet people where they are. And I think that part's really, really important. So those are often the two things I look for. Are you a team player with the senior leadership team? And are you emotionally intelligent enough to function in an organization like ours?
And let's say one of those senior roles becomes vacated. How do you make sure the person you're hiring in that role fits those values? Because An interview is never perfect. You're trying as hard as you can to make sure they're going to be the right person.
I hesitate to answer this because I don't want to give away my secret.
Do you have a secret here?
I a little bit of one. So I mean, for me, if it's a senior level role, I always like that person to interview with as many people on our senior leadership team as possible. And so I always like to meet with the person, of course, and try to get to know them. Usually I'll have a meal with them or something just to kind of make it a little more informal. But it's when I learn the most is when they have interactions with those other senior leaders, because they're always going to put their best self on for you. But how do they interact with other senior leaders in the company? If they are consistent across all of those conversations and they're respectful of all the other leaders in the company, that's always a good sign. And it almost happens more than you think of, where they're not as respectful to the senior leaders in the company as they are to what my role would be. Yeah.
Do you have any go-to interview questions you always like to ask?
I don't. I think my go-to interview question is, I want to get people as comfortable as possible so that we can have a real conversation, and not try to like throw them any curveballs and get them off their game. Like, I want to understand the person at like their real level, their authentic level, and how to do that as quickly as possible is key to me.
We're surprised sometimes when if we call it backdoor reference in our industry, where you call someone almost unexpectedly and ask them, what is this person like with their colleagues there? And you get such raw answers of who that person is. Because you're right, you can put on an amazing interview performance, and it's sometimes hard to really understand who someone is. They've got a great resume, they do great in the interview, but I like the idea of having each of your direct reports very involved. We see that often where the final 2 or 3 will come on site for like a half day. But we had a case recently where the person that was interviewing for the job was basically spending time with their future direct reports. Do you do that at all? We don't see that often. I'm curious to your take on it.
Often maybe a hello. They're usually not part of the interview process, but like getting to know them or getting to talk to them, I think is usually can be pretty helpful.
Yeah. Even if it's like, hey, we're going to lunch, you can come with.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're not interviewing them, you're spending time with. Yeah.
What's the balance, hiring for potential versus hiring for experience?
That's a really good question. The last couple of years, we've hired a CRO, and that was really on potential. And I'll tell you, the reason for that was I saw partnerships, especially partnerships in ticketing, moving towards storytelling and marketing. And we were really attracted by the candidate that we ended up getting the job, Galen Davies, who had overseen marketing and sponsorship for MLSE. Great company, beloved. And the potential that I think that he has, and having overseen both of those departments, is he can go and talk to a partner about a 7-figure pitch, and he understands what it's like to sit on both sides of the table. And so I see so much potential in that, right?
Yeah.
And Galen's showing that every day. And then we're in the middle of hiring a CFO right now, and that's a role where I'm like, man, I really want somebody who's experienced and we have this opportunity, as I said, to renovate our arena, to negotiate a lease, and it would be great to get somebody who's already done that, because we don't have that skill in our portfolio. So I think it just depends a little bit on what the role is and maybe the timing in the organization. Sorry, that's a long answer.
No, I like the answer, and you see it even on championship teams. There's not a ton of examples of teams with all mostly rookies or young athletes who win championships. There are a decent number of very experienced, but that window's short. They don't necessarily remain competitive for a long time, but having been there and done that can be quite valuable. But also ambition and wanting to prove it and potential can also be very valuable, and it's a delicate balance. 7 questions we ask everybody is how we always wrap the show.
All right, let's do this.
Question Blitz, insert drum roll or music or something. The air conditioning kicked on, so maybe that added in. First question, what sporting event have you never been to that you still dream of attending?
Olympic track and field.
Olympic track and field.
Mm-hmm.
You going to go in 2028?
I would love to go. Yeah.
Make it happen.
What is it, World Trials?
No, and it's Portland? A crime that I've never been there, because it's always Eugene, which is a few hours away. I want to do that, but I also want to do track and field.
Oh, I can't.
We've had 2 track and field CEOs on the podcast, so
There you
Jack
go.
Buckner of UK Athletics, and Max Siegel of USA Track and Field. So we've got track and field friends if we can help you out
Yeah,
here.
that'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
we can definitely help them out. So what 3 people, living or historical, would you love to play a round of golf with?
First of all, I'm not very good at golf, and I'd be a lot of time in the woods looking for my ball. But
Okay, you can go cycling with them, or you can go jogging with them.
I would say Kevin Feige at Marvel Studios. I think he's done an incredible job with all those movies and the franchises.
You're the first person who said Kevin, and I love that answer.
Yeah, that's a
I'm
good
a
answer.
big Marvel fan.
That's awesome.
And I've just, as a business leader too, what he's done is incredible.
What's your favorite Marvel franchise?
Captain America.
Nice.
Really? What are you saying, Mark? I think I'm Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Marvel.
All right, just
fan,
skip him.
so
Next question.
I'm not-
Who
I'm
is
not
the
a
next
good
person?
to ask.
Steve Jobs, if
Yeah.
be like
For
his
obvious.
biography is incredible. I've listened to it multiple times on audiobook.
Multiple times.
Just because I just love, and he's got a hard culture, but I love like the reality distortion field thing and all that. And then Barack Obama.
Iconic names.
Yeah.
My next one is, what sporting memory is most near and dear to your heart?
The LA Kings winning the Stanley Cup on their home ice in a 6-1 game. I think that was the final score. And it was just the first time they've ever won the cup. And it was just ecstatic in the Staples Center at the time it was just so much fun.
Yeah. Plus, you work so hard to get there.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And it was so unlikely because, again, the team was an 8 seed. And
Yeah.
it was, the fans have been dying to have that happen for, 50 years. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Amazing.
Those are great fans.
Mhm.
Kings fans in playoffs are awesome.
What's something about you most people maybe wouldn't know?
So I think sports was always the backup plan. I thought I was going to be like a singer in a punk rock band all
Did
through
you?
college. Yeah.
Sing us something right
So
now.
I'm not going to do that.
We can all
but
sing together.
I spent all my college years in a punk band with two of my best friends.
What was your
and
hairdo back then?
It was just bleach blonde.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's coming back right now. A lot of people are
I
bleaching.
think I can do it.
I used to bleach my hair blonde. I said to my wife the other day, I said, I think I'm going to bleach it again. She goes, please don't. Okay.
We definitely wouldn't take you as seriously.
No, you wouldn't. What are your professional pet peeves?
Meetings without agendas, long emails.
We sent you an agenda for this meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I didn't even know that. So now I know. And you don't like long emails.
Mm-mm.
What, you just prefer really long texts?
I'll probably still throw it in ChatGPT to say get to the point, but
Is that what you do?
Yeah.
You summarize it? The communication rule that I always recommend, if you're communicating to a CEO, a president, a GM, give them the punchline at the very top of the email and say, if you want more context, here's the rest.
Yes.
But the
great.
punchline has to be absolutely smack dab at the top. I want your business. Boom. Here it is.
That is great advice.
I'm sure Microsoft will have a built-in AI feature soon for Outlook.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's coming if it's not already here. If you weren't in your current role and you couldn't be in sports, what's your dream job?
Working at Sony PlayStation.
Nice.
Which
Are you a big
I'm
gamer?
a huge gamer. And I just love the idea again of like taking business and trying to combine it with like the creative aspect of the game studios there.
Yeah.
So,
It's a fascinating industry. And if Chad wasn't a married man, he'd probably be gaming all day.
I love gaming too.
Do you?
All
Yes. League of Legends. I
you
think
used
is
to not
amazing.
be able to admit this, but I
No.
love that we can talk about this.
I was pretty awesome at
I
Halo.
know.
Pretty awesome at Halo too.
That was cool to be a gamer, right?
It is. What are your games?
I'm not an online gamer, so just like adventure games like The Witcher 3 is a really great one if you've ever played
No,
that.
never,
It's like
never heard of
it's
it.
kind of like a Game of Thrones-ish, and then The Last of Us, which was a very popular show, started as a game, was a great game.
Wow.
And with two boys, 12 and 10, I mean, you're just in the moment right now of saying, "Hey, I'm just playing
Spending
dad."
time with
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I didn't even want to be playing these
Yeah.
games.
Well, it's usually
Just being dad.
usually my wife coming in and say, "Okay, when are you three going to bed?"
That's so fun. My kids do like playing FIFA, and we'll do FIFA quite a bit. I'm still stuck on punk rock band. We left out an important detail. What was the name of this band?
Red Letter Day.
Red Letter Dead.
Yeah, you
we
can find us on Spotify still.
Can
so
I
check
find
it
you
out,
on
yeah.
Spotify?
Yeah.
And how'd you come up with the name?
The day that Ken Griffey Jr. got traded to the Reds, it was the headline in the Chicago Sun-Times, and I was like, "Oh, that'd be a good band name."
Are we allowed to open the episode with Red Letter Dead music?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that'd
Look
be
at
pretty
how
cool,
fun would that
actually.
be?
I think
I need to get the
we
license.
can get the rights. Yeah,
I need to get the
yeah.
license for this. Next time I'm in Portland, where do I need to eat?
They've already gotten so much great publicity, but Cannes, it's one of the best. It was named one of. I think it was
Spell
named
it?
the best. Kann is
Okay.
named the best restaurant in the U.S. last year.
Con,
No
is
way.
it really?
What type of food?
Haitian. incredible, great cocktails. Hard to get a table, but I might be able to help.
We know somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really good.
Okay.
All right, Con, we're in.
Con, we're coming.
Dwayne, thanks so much for hanging out with us
Dwayne.
today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate
it's been
you,
fun.
man. It's been fun. Thank you.